2015 that she's a Mexican native trans woman from Guadalajara, and that she works at the HIV prevention services. She's the project coordinator with Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. And before that, she was the program manager for the Transgéneros Unidas with Bienestar, as we've seen. Made a large impact there. And she's the founder and president of the trans-Latina coalition. And she calls herself a very proud Latina transgender woman who is recognized nationwide for her advocacy work related to trans issues. I think that everybody who saw this film will agree that we've seen what a person right at the beginning was introducing her and called her a phoenix, right? A phoenix, that mythological creature that rises from its own ashes and is reborn. That we've really seen that level of transformation in this very inspiring story that we see here. She's won several awards that I don't think were mentioned in the film, so let me just mention what those were. In 2006, she was recognized with the Sol Award from the National Latino AIDS Awareness Day of Los Angeles. In 2009, she was recognized with the Icon Award from the Trans Unity Pride of Los Angeles. And in 2010, she was recognized by the Christopher Street West Producers of LA Pride with the Connie Norman Leadership Award for her leadership and work with transgender communities. In 2011, she was awarded the Sheila J. Kuehl Trailblazer Award from the Stonewall Democratic Club. And in 2012, she was awarded the City of West Hollywood Women in Leadership Award and the Silvia Rivera Leadership Award from the Latino History Project in DC. Join me in welcoming Bamby Salcedo and Dante Alencastre. Okay.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, please.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
You have to say that. Why were you late?
Well, I first want to thank everyone, each of you, for being here, for taking the time to be here. It is really an honor that I have the opportunity to be in this department, the Chicano Studies Department, which is obviously very dear to my heart. And it's truly a privilege and an honor to be here, and then especially in UCLA, right? So, who don't want to be in UCLA? I know I do. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm just gonna say, like, I'm here. I'm an open book. Like, I have nothing to hide. Like, as you can see, you know, like, I'm out there. So I'm really here to just sort of like engage with you, whatever you want to ask. Of course, if I don't want to answer, I'll tell you I'm not going to answer that. So. But I guess before I do that, I do want to mention something that I'm just going to put this here for a minute. That was mentioned during the documentary about a report, or it was mentioned that we were working on a report. So this is a research project that we did through our network, through the Trans-Latina Coalition. It's free to download it on our website. I did brought a couple of copies to live for your archives, so that people have access to, you know, to obviously get it. But you could download it for free on our website. We're in the process of getting some money to have the report printed in Spanish, so that's pretty cool. And then I also got our Angels of Change calendar, which is our 2014 calendar. This is also available on the website. We do ask for a $10 donation, and this is to support services that we provide for young trans individuals who are not able to pay for their services, and you know, all of the good stuff that they get. So I got a few. I'm not sure how we could do this. We could raffle them, whatever. I'm not completely sure, but I guess we can work something out. So that is that. You want to say something? I'm sorry, I don't want to.
Well, I just want to say.
One mic, one diva.
Happy New Year to everybody, and actually, I just want to get the ball rolling with any questions that you have for Bambi or I. To please go ahead and, you know, speak your mind.
Don't be shy. It's all good.
Otherwise, Alicia's gonna start pitching in?
I'm gonna start anyway. Yeah, because this is something that is very important in the classes that I teach, my Chicana and Chicano studies classes. I always teach about the etymology, the history of the word crisis, which means, actually, it means to make a decision. It means, to make a choice. And really, we know that the kinds of transformations that we experience in our lives usually happen as a result of having experienced crisis first. And that moment where you decide that you've got to do something to save your life. And we saw in the film various examples of crises that you went through. And yet at the same time, the crisis, you would go forward and then you would go back. And then you would go have another crisis and you would take another 3 steps forward and then you would go back. What do you think was the final crisis that was finally your turning point, that brought you to the miracle that you are today?
I guess how I could probably answer that question is like, everybody's experience obviously is different, right? And we probably have heard a term that says, everybody, hits a bottom, right, at some point, and obviously everybody's bottom is different, of course. Some are cute, some are not. But anyway, that's a different thing. But like when you finally get to that point to where like there's no other way, but I think for me, in different stages of my life, that's what had to happen for me. In terms of, I guess, reforming my life and drug addiction and stuff, I think that very night for me was like key, right? Because like in some ways I was, really drugged up. I don't want to, I was drugged up, and I sort of like seen my life, right? Like somehow, like I just saw that my life was really nothing at that particular point. And I was like in my 30s. And so I don't know, I always like to say that it was a divine intervention. I am a spiritual person, I am not religious, but I do believe that there's a higher power. And I think that's how, I have become the person that I am today because of my higher power. Because my higher power has a purpose for me, and I just sort of like, put one foot in front of the other for me to do what I'm supposed to be doing. Like a lot of times I don't even know what it is. I always ask my higher power to guide me whenever I'm doing like speeches, like big conferences, which is like really intimidating. For somebody like me who has come from, from the dirt in some ways, right? Then like it's really intimidating. But I'm in power now, so that's cool. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I guess at different points I had to get to that point, I guess.
Question?
Yeah, over there.
Hi, I just want to say that I admire you. So dope. I was going to say, so like, when you were in prison, was it difficult? I don't know how it works for like, for transgenders. Like, do you get placed into a male prison, a woman prison? Did you want to be placed in a certain prison? Like, how did that work?
As an inmate, right? I mean, even though, there's international laws that say that inmates have rights, like you really don't, right? Like you're, you're just subject for them to treat you however they want to treat you, unfortunately. So as a trans woman, and let me just say that the system, how it's basically based here, it's, they go by your genitalia, so whatever you have between your legs is where you're going to be placed. It doesn't matter how you present, it doesn't matter if you have history, that's what they go with. And that's really, unfortunately, how our society is set up and drives many of the structures that we have within our society. So I had to experience a lot of humiliation. I obviously had to be put, in cells with like 50 men and continuously be sexually harassed. And, I was a victim of sexual violence when I was in prison at different points, like county jail, prison, even at the detention center. So it's really like an ongoing cycle, and unfortunately, you know, that was what I had to experience, and I know that that's the experience of many trans women today, because I still, you know, I work with them and I talk to them, and, you know, so that hasn't changed.
Are there any like organizations that are working on that, like those rights, being able to decide what prison someone should go to?
Well, there is like some legislation that has, you know, been taking place. For instance, there's PREA, or the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which is a federal legislation that is supposed to protect people from being victims of sexual assault. But I think part of the problem that happens is that there may be some legislation in place, but people don't even know about it. You know, like, for instance, like in this case could be like prison guards, right? Like they don't, and plus they don't really care. So, I mean, there's a lot of work. I think what needs to be done is that, you know, when there's legislation, there's also need to be training to go with it, because, you know, like even for trans people here, like there is AB 1996, which is, you know, an anti-discrimination legislation here in California that protects trans people, but like people continue to discriminate, people don't know about it, you know, and stuff like that. So I think there needs to be training with that, along with the legislation.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Hi, beautiful.
Well, I just have a little quick question. So gender is socially constructed, right? We have an idea what it is to be a woman. So when you were growing up, you learned that to be a woman had long hair, to wear dresses. Did you ever, when you're transforming, did you ever think, oh, this is what I have to do to act like a woman, or did it just come natural to you?
I think for me, it's a natural thing. Like it was a natural thing from then, but I was born a boy and I was trained to be a boy. I'm the second oldest in my family, and so I had to, you know what I mean. Like I was supposed to be the man of the house, right? So, but of course that didn't work out. And you know what I mean. So like that's how I was trained, and that was why. Like I think because of that, it created a lot of problems for me, right? Like I couldn't be me, and so my escape was drugs, you know, like it was just getting away from my reality, right? And then, so when I transitioned, of course we are influenced by many different things, right? Our friends, the media, what we see on TV, and the image that we have of what people should look like, right? Like. And so that was kind of like how it kind of started, but I personally, as I went along, then I sort of like, you know, started finding myself. Of course, when I was doing drugs, I was just like, I didn't care, whatever, this is me, you know. I was very violent and you know, so I wasn't cute per se. Okay? But then, you know, little by little, I sort of like found myself. Like, I'm not your typical, I guess, trans woman, or the image of the, many people think of trans women, you know, like I hate makeup, you know, like, and many of us think that makeup is one of the things like, oh, I can't go out the door if I don't have makeup, you know, and I mean, I use it, and I know that I look good when I do, but it just, you know, like, I just hate it. You know? Yeah, I hate putting hair products in my hair. You know, like I just let it down or just grab it on a ponytail and I'm good to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like little things like that are not what I don't think makeup or a skirt or anything makes me the woman that I am. Do you want to say something? Ask
About
something.
a woman?
Yeah.
That I am?
Yeah, I don't know.
What makes me a man? No, I'm sure there'll be questions.
Just quick question. In the film, it says how you were part of the Mexican and de los Huérfanos. Because even though you had your home, but you know you were what we call here a latchkey kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your mom was working 24 hours a day, you know, 7 days a week, kind of how I grew up with my mom here in LA. But how, I guess my question is, how did you, what made it different? Why didn't you feel the love? Why did you feel you needed to be part of the gang as opposed to staying at home and just, like you mentioned, working from when you were 7, 8 years old, and just knowing that your mom was just working because she loved you, because she wanted to provide for you? What was that difference?
Could someone repeat the question, please? Was a microphone?
Yeah. I'm sorry, yeah,
Keep it
sorry.
really short.
I should have thought about that,
Yeah.
sorry.
I know, sorry. No, my question was, you know, when she was younger and she was part of the gangs, the huérfanos, you know, it was, she says, you know, because she had a family, but, you know, she felt like she belonged with the orphans, with the orphan gang. My question was, me, myself, growing up in LA, being a latchkey kid, as we are known, you know, raising yourself because your parent is working 24 hours a day. Why, I guess the question is, what was the difference of, didn't you feel the love? Didn't you know that, you know, your mom is working, you know, 100 hours a day because she's trying to support you, because she's loving you? What was that point where it wasn't the love of the mom as opposed to the love of the friends? You know, like the friends were more important than what your mom was trying to do. You know, like what was that key point?
I think for what I now understand, it's, you know, so my dad left before I was born, right? So I think that contributed for me to, like, you know, feel like I didn't really belong, right? Or that I wasn't loved, or that, like people didn't really care, right?
It wasn't enough.
Yeah, and then also, well, my mom, right? She was working a lot, and then there was this, you know, my stepdad, who was also, you know, you have the idea. And so, you know, like, I just felt like I didn't matter, right? Like, whatever, like, I was just there, but I, you know, like, people didn't really care, right? And then when I was with this group of people, you know what I mean? Like, if I, you know, we would do things together, right? Like, we would go and, you know, do crime together, and they would teach me how to do things, and they would, like, in some ways motivate me, right? Like, they put me to fight with other people, and, you know, they encouraged me, you know what I mean? Like, all of those things, and those weren't things that I was getting at home, you know? And so I think all of those things sort of, like, contributed for me to felt that I belong, you know?
Yeah, but
Why don't we just pass this around and then we'll just.
I'll be loud.
Oh, okay.
My question is, so sort of like in ethnic studies here, you know, at the university, academic level, we talk a lot about intersectionality. So intersectionality of race, gender, class, citizenship status, et cetera, et cetera. So my question was sort of geared towards, in your Angels of Change and working with youth, and I'm sure Angels of Change is so diverse with the, you know, you have so many people coming from different communities, different social indicators and everything like that. How do you see the intersectionality playing out with your youth, and how does that impact sort of their identity, growth, and evolution through that kind of empowering process?
That is a really good and loaded question, and I love it. And I appreciate that question. I think, you know, the young people that I work with are, they do have all of these intersectionalities, right, that you're talking about. I mean, most of them are, they are what we call high-risk youth. So they come from, you know, low economic status, right? They come from abused homes. Some of them are immigrants, some of them are undocumented, some of them are African American. So all of those things, right? But I think Angels of Change gives them the opportunity to sort of, like, in some ways forget about all of those things, right? And then just be. Participate and just be, and really not think about all these things or all these intersectionalities that, you know, I'm going through, right? Or how those prevent me from getting a job, or how those prevent me from even just going out to the street, right? Because as a trans person or as a trans young individual, it's also challenging to just be, really, just because society is ignorant, you know? So I think having this particular project gives them the ability to just be, and not think about all of these challenges and intersectionalities that, they have to face.
But this young man has had his hand up for a while.
I'll give the question to both of you, so you can feel. It's like more of a like general type of question. Like there's obviously like, from like I've seen the video or whatever. There's like a lot of like injustice between like for transgender people and like LGBT or whatever. So I was just thinking like, who do you like blame like prejudice of like people, like just the general public? Do you blame them? Or do you more like blame like, the way the institutions are set up, or do you even blame anyone, or like, well, you know what I mean? Like who is at fault when it comes to like injustice and like, like the community or whatever?
Well, I can tell you I'm not of trans experience, of course, but I'm gay. I'm a gay man. I've been out for over 30 years, and I come from Peru, which is a very homophobic country where there are no laws and nothing to protect LGBTQ people. And I think it comes from, and I noticed from the people from my generation, and I think I can extrapolate and talk about even my friends here in LA and in New York, where I used to live, is people just very indifferent. If they come somebody who's not from the same entity was, and it's through my interaction with the trans community in Peru, and then through meeting people like Valerie and Bambi and Maria and all the other people that I have met, in the last 7 years, is when you really start caring, and you start caring in a way that you want to be part of the change, that we all can be equal. The laws and the structures that Bambi talks about, that we try to fight together. I mean, my personal way of fighting is through making these documentaries and bringing it to as many audiences as possible. But I think people just have to care, and have to, not be so but it's an ignorance that they enjoyed. I mean, there's something that they want to stay in that ignorance. Because even when I bring my film to these audiences who have never met a trans people, some of them have really become advocates, but some people say, well, I don't know anybody who's trans, so that's not my problem, Yeah. But it's when you take the consciousness that you want to make a difference, and you apply it to your daily life, to the closest people next to you, you bring your family into the conversation, and then your friends and your community. I think that's when you start making changes.
I just want to add a little bit to that. I don't think it's about blaming anybody, but I think it's about taking responsibility, right? And I think the responsibility laid on us is really for us to get educated, right? And to understand how these structures have been built, right? Like, we have to understand how race was constructed, right? We do know that there's no genetics to say that there's race, right? There's no proof that there's race yet. Race was constructed to make sure that to separate people, basically, that we're not white, right? So I hope we know that, right? So, and if we don't, then we need to learn a little bit about that, right? Because everything comes from way back, right? And in some ways, the trans community nowadays is like, we're living like when we were in 1865, you know what I mean? Like, we have, in many cases, no rights, right? I mean, they say that we do, but we don't, right? And that's kind of like, when the 14th Amendment, the 13th Amendment, you know what I mean? And all of those, like, way back when. So in some ways, we are kind of like there, but I think it's important for us to understand how those things have been formed, and how those structures continue to play a role on people's lives, right? And I think the responsibility for us is like, those people are in power because we put them there, and those people are in power because oftentimes we don't care. Like, a lot of young people, they just don't vote, right? So it's our responsibility to make changes, and that's how we can make changes. Put people who are going to be responsible and that are going to really care for people, not just for a certain race or certain ethnicity, if you will.
So, in most typical households, like especially in Latino households, the whole LGBT, like they're very homophobic for the most part. And I noticed in the film that your mom came out and she seemed very proud of you, which she has every right to be. But how and when were you able to come out to her, and how did that all go?
It was in some ways like in different stages. When I was little, I had this conversation with my mom, even like not long ago, but when I was like probably like 14 or 15, I sort of like tried to have a conversation with my mom. I remember that one time when I was dressing up on the streets and stuff, and then I came home, I brought like all my stuff, and I gave it to my sister, and my sister told my mom that I had given her all of this stuff, and then my mom knew, right? Like she knew, but then, her response was like, one in English, right? Like translated, she said that she gave a birth to a man, and that she wanted a man in her house, right? So my option was to deny that those things were mine, that, it wasn't me, that I wasn't who I was, that I was going to be the man that I was expected to be, so, but even before that, when I was little, I think ever since I was little, like there was something about me, the way I walked or whatever, you know what I mean? Like the people knew, but, there was always this denial. I think the good thing for me was that my mom was in Mexico, and when I started my transition, and I didn't see my mom for like 10 years or something. Plus, being in prison and all of this, these things. And so that helped in some ways, because my mom didn't really see me. She knew, but then, she was always in denial. But I think now she comes sort of like to a place that she knows that this is me, and it's not a face like how oftentimes our families think, right? And so I think she recognizes also the work that I'm doing. So I think some of the fear that many of our parents have is that, that you're doomed, right? Like you're condemned, que eres un pecado, you know what I mean? Like, and so they have that fear also. And so they think that the worst of us and don't really give us the validity, que no nos valoran, no? They don't give us the validity. Eso. That we should have, right? Like as young people, as individuals, as sons, as daughters, you know what I mean? Like, they don't give us that. And so that also plays a lot into it. But anyways, my mom, she's like, I think she does not have a choice. That she comes to realize that, you know what I mean? Like,
you.
Thank you. I met you at the event where we were launching here our LGBT archive, and I teach here in the Chicano Studies department, and I also do oral history and documenting, and I just want to say how amazing and fierce the film is for both of you. And I wanted to ask what gave you the courage to be so fierce and not sugarcoat it, because I feel like the more we get accepted, gay marriage, or the more people want us to be kind of normal, and I love the film, how powerful it is, because it's just really honest, really fierce, and it doesn't say we're just like you, or it's really in your face. It's very queer that way.
There's this queer Chicano guy. His name is Eddie Martinez. Some time ago, he wrote a piece when he was doing his master's about, how I sort of like use all those, I guess, strategies or strengths that I used when I was surviving on the streets and using drugs and all of that. How I incorporate those things into the work that I do now. And so, I was obviously very privileged about that, and that was really cool. But I think being the way that I am, right, like just in your face, because I think that's kind of like, that's how I am really. And people don't really like that. Yeah, people don't really like that, and I have experienced, I have been like in really important meetings with like representatives of HHS, which is the Health and Human Services. It's a federal thing, federal entity, and CDC, and okay, make sure that that's not. But anyway, yeah, no. Anyways, what I'm saying is that I've been in like really important meetings, and because of some of the things that I say, because I always advocate obviously for the needs of the community, they don't like to hear the truth, and so I mean I have not been invited sometimes back, you know what I mean, like but I know why, right? Like even when some meeting notes come out and like I didn't say that, I said this, you know what I mean, like just things like that, and people don't like that. I don't know, it's just me, like I'm just gonna tell it like it is. If you don't like it, well, I mean, as long as I don't hurt anybody, right? Like, I mean, there are times where I want to slap somebody, but don't do it, no, seriously. I mean, you should see some of these people, or hear them. And so, but anyways, yeah, I am just, you want to say something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, so because of the way she is in terms of making the film and editing it, I just took the same, clue from her personality that I was going to be no holds barred and telling her story of things that most people, even people who are close to her, have never heard, because I wanted to get a full spectrum of what made this woman what she is today. And there were some things that she probably, the first time that she heard him telling to me was the first time she tells anybody, I mean, I remember those lonely nights when we were like filming just the two of us, and some things would just come out, and I felt very privileged, and I felt that was very intimate. But I also felt that if Bambi have confided in me, is because she wants this to be in the film somehow, and she never censored me in any way. She was, like I said, an open book. She gave me all her full access to her friends, her family, and they were all very happy to contribute because of the love that she gives them, and then the way the love that they're giving her.
Some people think it's a good thing. Some people think it's not a good thing. I don't know, but
that's the way it is.
Yeah,
it's the way it is. It's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, we actually have time for one more question. Does somebody have a burning desire?
Yes, hi.
I'm not sure this is appropriate, so I'll ask it and then you
Go
can
for
decide.
it. I have heard.
The big issue in the LA city schools, from what I read, is the issue of the bathrooms. Now, I couldn't care less what bathrooms. How would you handle it? It's really become an issue. Am I the only one that's been reading about that, or? No. It's the big issue of the day. Isn't that the one they're using? How would you deal with that?
So AB 1266, have you heard of that?
Yeah, Jackson was here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. So really, what it is legislation that gives access to trans and gender non-conforming individuals to use whatever facilities, not just necessarily the bathroom, but facilities that they feel comfortable with, such as the gym, whatever that may be, right? Why should it be an issue, right? Like, I know that when I go to the bathroom and take care of my business, right? Like, whatever, maybe look at myself in the mirror, do I look cute, what's up, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. But people, right, like, and then we go back to, people who have privilege, or people who are like, in some ways, messed up in the head, right? Like, why they want to, make these things up, like that we're perverts, that we go to the bathroom to, why does it have to be sexual? Right? Like, why does it have to be immoral? Like, people make it to be when it really doesn't have to. And obviously, I mean, they're the same forces that were fighting against Prop 8 back in the day, right? Like, and these are organizations and individuals who are privileged, who have money, and money is power, right? And so that's why they want to make it an immoral thing when it really shouldn't be. And that's why, we're trying to find, with the limited resources that we have, and asking people for money to fight against them so that they don't get their way and they don't continue to marginalize us for something as simple as just have equal access to, to public spaces. That's not, it should be what it, you know what I mean? Like, why? Right? Like, people are dumb.
Well, and just,
some people.
That should be the natural.
just to piggyback on that briefly, and it comes back to personal responsibility because, if this proposition comes to vote, or even before that, you should be engaged in and spreading this message, with your friends, your other students, staff, faculty. We had Jackson earlier talking about like they need people for canvassing and all of that. So if you feel that the film and meeting Bambi and hearing what she has to say prompts you to take action, this is the action that you can actually do right now. So do it.
Are we all registered to vote?
Oh, and and if it comes to a vote, of course, vote.
Yeah. I know I can't. I'm not a citizen.
Yeah.
But
well, I can't. Yeah.
I influence people. Vote.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Well, on that note, let's give them a hand. Thank you again. There will be a reception on the patio, and I believe you're going to